I am honored and have the privilege of introducing Kip Cummings. He's a friend of mine. When I heard that he was actually doing a speaking day, I reached out to him, told him I was here, then truly gave me the privilege of getting introduced. So today we have the privilege of welcoming a man who truly lives our motto, service above self. In 2010, Kip Cummings was founded the Power of Peace Project with a bold and simple mission to bring hope, healing, and transformation to some of the most divided and dangerous places in the world. Since then, his work has reached over 100 prisons, schools, and rehabilitation centers across 4 continents, impacting more than 10,000 lives from inner city youth, incarcerated men and women, corporations, classrooms. It is not only a global voice for nonviolence and second chances, but also an award-winning author, international speaker, and former recipient of the MLK Living Dream Award for his work in civil rights, prison reform, and underserved youth. His programs have helped reduce violence, restore families, and build bridges between law enforcement, schools, and communities. At his heart, his message is simple, powerful, and very rotary. One brave heart at a time, we can change the world. Please join me in giving a warm Rotary welcome to Kip Cummings, founder of the Power of Peace Project.
Get him, buddy. Appreciate you. Oh, good afternoon, Rotary family. I'm so grateful and honored to be able to share a little bit of time with you today. My heart and condolences go out to your speaker, and I'll do my best to fill his shoes, and I pray for the families involved there. I want to thank Scott, who's my friend, forever connected. We knew each other through my wife, who's in real estate for a long time, and we were at the national championship game when the Dogs won the first one at a retreat center up in the middle of nowhere, and Scott and I were sitting next to each other, and so we got to experience that. I'm assuming this is a dog-friendly environment. Yeah. All right. I'll talk about Carson now. Thank you, Vitrumi, for inviting me as well, and my friend Susan, who I think might have made the first connection there, so thank you for that as well. Is the Milton coach in the room? Is that what I heard? The Milton High School football coach? No? Okay, never mind then. I have they gave me a ring. Our program I'm going to tell you about today actually won their first state championship, so I'm forever connected to Milton, but also have done some work with your kids over at Roswell High School as well as Alpharetta High School. So I'm deeply connected to this area. I am a Rotarian. I represent the North Cobb Rotary Club, and so I send greetings from them, but you guys are still the gold standard. Just know that out there in the Rotary world, everybody's like, Roswell, oh, you guys. And 14 years ago, I got to stand behind this podium and deliver a message to some of you guys. Mr. Liu was the president then, and you guys are still in the same place, still filling the room, so congratulations on that. The organization that I founded is called the Power of Peace Project. They call us POP, P-O-P-P. And we work with kids, primarily. And I used to say we work with at-risk youth. And if I say at-risk youth, you probably think of maybe inner city, underserved, marginalized communities where kids are at risk of gang activity, incarceration, homicide. I mean, just the toughest kids. And we do serve that population as well as juvenile court kids, juvenile detention kids, and also group foster homes, CCYA. So we work with kids that have had a tough life, who are in trouble. But now when I say at risk, basically I'm talking about all kids, aren't I? Because whether it's the inner city where we're seeing those threats that scare us, now in the suburbs and out here in the outer places, we're still seeing kids at great risk, whether it be accidental death from drunk driving, distracted driving, self-harm, suicide, overdose, different things that can take young lives. So whether it's in the cities or outside of the cities, Generation Z are under tremendous threats and very much at risk. And we're trying to do something about that. My hat's off to first responders, law enforcement, those that are out there protecting this community. We value our partnerships, and I salute you and thank you for your work. Interestingly, we didn't start in a school. We started in a prison. And after the wildest guy to ever become a preacher, this guy, 15 years preaching the word, leading large churches, developing a reputation that was beyond Atlanta, I lost my dream and I walked away from a congregation of about 2,000 people at the time here in the metro Atlanta area. And I got out there and had to go through some things. Life came, some storms showed up. And the storms, they don't make an appointment and they don't ask permission, they just arrive. And that visited this preacher. And I lost my dream. Preachers don't tend to have a plan B. It's something we're going to do forever. And I found myself out there and fell in love and got married again. Kids, 2 kids became 4 kids. But I was a preacher without a pulpit. And I was trying to figure out what was going to come next. And I didn't know it was going to come in the form of an invitation to a prison. I'd never really done much prison ministry, but I'd gone and maybe somebody had gotten in a little trouble in the church and I'd go and see him at the county jail, maybe a little DUI or something, but I'd never really done prison ministry. The one I follow says, the way we treat the least of these, the hungry and the thirsty and the naked and the stranger and the sick and the prisoner, is how we treat him. And I took that to heart. And I told him, I said, if you ever let me preach again, I'll go to the ones that nobody wants to go to. The harassed and the helpless, the least of these, the hated, feared, and forgotten, the left behind. And I don't even think I knew what I was praying at the time, but he was listening. And it took years, and all of a sudden that dream came to life as a wonderful organization called Kairos invited me to go to a prison. And it was right time, right place. I was wide open. I told him, show me where you want me to go. And so the day that I walked into that prison, I didn't know my life was changing. As I walked through the gates and I heard that slam behind me, my heart leapt. I wasn't afraid. I was excited because I felt like I was about to experience something I had never experienced. And there was a gift inside of me that was waking up that I didn't even really knew I had. I knew I could speak. I feel like that was a God-given gift, and I had used that, but I had squandered it. And now I was trying to find my voice again, and I walked into Hays State Prison, the worst prison in the state. Those of us that work in law enforcement are around it. They know about Hays. Gangster-run prison, 1,200 men, 800 men active and affiliated in gangs, and it was on fire. But all I knew is I wanted to go in there and meet some guys and make some friends, and that's what I started doing. And it got to where it just became an obsession with me. I couldn't wait to go back. It was Tuesdays at 4 o'clock, and then it was going back on Fridays at 10 o'clock. I had 2 jobs at the time. One, it was kind of real estate. Another one, I was doing some preaching. And I walked away from both. And my wife thought I was crazy. Baby, how are you going to support the family? And I was like, I got to go serve some prisoners, baby. We'll figure it out. And God bless her. She kind of made things work for us for a minute while I tried to get my head wrapped around this thing that he had called me to that was brand new. And on January the 18th, which was MLK Day in 2011, I was seated in a room with 12 prisoners. And it just happened to be right then when Dr. King, that is known for that famous 4-word saying, which is, I have a dream. You know that I can ask middle schoolers in today's world, 2026, middle schoolers, what did Dr. Martin Luther King say? And they'll go, I have a dream. Like, how do they know that? It's not necessarily that we're teaching it in schools. That was such an incredible, powerful statement. That word dream, it was electrified on that day. The day before, August 27th, 1963, if somebody said, hey, what's your dream? It's like, I don't really remember my dreams when I sleep. But that next day, when he stood on that mall and 300,000 people and the whole nation hanging on every word, and he said, I have a dream today. It woke that word up. That word's so powerful. You establish a big dream and it has an attractive pull, just like gravity. It'll pull you through obstacles and temptations and distractions and failure and haters and a lot of the things that I had experienced when I had a public fall from grace from the popular, powerful preacher to, what's up with Kid? You heard about him? Gone through a divorce, was out there running around trying to figure out who I was again at middle age. And then I caught my big dream. And that day, we had been working on this for a minute, but I'm sitting in a room in a tough prison, and we have Crips and Bloods and gangster disciples and Latin kings and some Muslim brothers, some Christian brothers, and a few other assorted gangsters. But we all had one thing in common. We were searching for something better than what we had. And I'm going back to the free world. And these brothers, they started dreaming a little bit together. And on that day, January the 18th, we just celebrated 15 years of the movement that I got caught up in called the Power Peace Project. And we said for the 40 days, let's see if we can live nonviolently in Georgia's toughest maximum security prison. And they set out to do that. And magic happened in that season. And peace came to that prison, the worst prison in the state, 30 state prisons. This was the last stop on the block, worst of the worst. At the end of that year, because of those brothers who became heroes to me, it won Prison of the Year that year in the state of Georgia and went from worst to first. Kind of got me on the map. People started treating me like I was an expert. All I knew was I had fallen in love with some inmates, and I had developed my relationship in a new way. And I had found my voice again, but this time it was a different message. And so that 12 men pledge led to over 100 prisons and jails and detention centers and rehab facilities on 5 continents, thousands of prisoners, thousands of kids, over 100 churches. Last year in 2025, we did Estonia and Romania and Cambodia and Honduras and Argentina and Brazil, prisoners and churches. Coming up in about a week, we're going to El Salvador and Panama, and then we're headed to Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, and doors are opening all because 12 men decided to dream that things could be better. But I thought that was all I was going to do. I started writing books about it. And I kind of got known in that area, went through some training and became a gang expert, whatever that is. And that became my passion, man. It's like, man, where do you love? I get to speak at corporate events and I preach at churches. I speak in schools all the time. Tonight we'll be at a group foster home. And my favorite place to preach is behind that razor wire. And you're like, why? I think it's because watching miracles happen with broken people changed me every single time. But then I started thinking, how can we help the next generation? Because I can go and I can serve in these prisons and try to bring peace, which we've seen it happen. And I could give my whole life to that. But what about this young generation? They're faced with so many threats. I mean, I was a knucklehead back in the 80s. I went to Walton High School. And those aren't exactly mean streets, if you know what I mean. I mean, you can find some trouble, and I was a knucklehead, and I found some trouble, and I met some of our fine officers. Yeah, that guy. And so, but we did, you could get in trouble, but it took a minute. You had to go through several hoops to find what you were looking for and get in trouble. But if you were a knucklehead like me, you could still find it. But I cannot imagine having something like this in my hand. And I'm telling you, we say it all the time, it's this technology, it's those devices. Get off of that phone, and then walk away with ours. It's changed everything. They're one click away from whatever they want, and they're growing up in this gangster culture. Now, this is interesting. God threw me in with a bunch of gangsters and men that wanted something better. And I'm still in touch with some of those guys that are doing life without. Done work on death row. Done work in toughest prisons in the world, in Africa and Eastern Europe and Asia and South America 2 months ago. Brazilian prisons. I always wanted to do that one. And so those guys, now we shift forward to this generation right now, the 15-year-old, and maybe we have some parents in here that have those middle school age, high school age, Gen Z, the alphas coming after them. Or maybe you might have grandkids that are in that situation. Ours are grown, but we get to work with kids all the time. They're growing up in a gangster culture where everything gangster is cool. If you think about it, They listen, now get your heads right around this. They listen to somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 100 songs a day. All of them are stories. And guess what their favorite kind of music is? Gangster, hip hop. 1,000, just thousands per week of stories pumping into their very neuroplastic brains that are changing with these messages to where they don't even know the messages anymore that are being pumped into their impressionable brains. They play video games like Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto, where the whole game is shooting up places, especially law enforcement. And they're slowly being programmed. You know, their movies are horror movies. Those are the number one genre, right? It's their music, their movies, their social media. What gets the most play? Weed, guns, sex, violence. Fight breaks out in the hall. Whoever snaps it first and drops it gets more cool points. Things start happening at a party. Maybe things are going sideways for a girl. Clothes are coming off. Phones are coming out. And it's become this culture that everything is being seen through the lens of these devices. And they're not trying to be gangsters necessarily, but you hang out at the barbershop long enough, you can end up getting a haircut. You know what I'm saying? We become what we see. We become what we hear. And we start acting and not even knowing it. So now we got kids, beautiful kids at Roswell High School in Alpharetta and Milton that are all a little gangster. And they're not gangsters. Well, those brothers on the inside had a message. So I was called down to La Mesa prison in Tijuana, Mexico. La Mesa is one of the toughest prisons in the world. And Netflix did a thing on the 10 toughest prisons in the world. I've been in half of them. I'm trying to go to the other half. It's just like, I can't tell you, something happens. The spirit gets fired up behind that wire. And so they said, will you bring your program to Tijuana, Mexico, and do it at La Mesa prison, a 5,000 men cartel-controlled prison? And I said, say when. And so we had one of my books translated into Spanish, went down there. They gave me 50 guys from one of their toughest blocks. And we knew it worked in prisons in America, but we didn't know if it would work there. And sure enough, it worked. And those hard men, they came together. And they started to work together. And we had a party in the yard and celebrated like little kids. And these are the guys you see on the news, the ones that scare us. And I became even more thoroughly convinced that everyone is inherently good, that we're made in the image of our Creator. And then life begins to cover up that light. And our kids are growing up in a world where, think about what they're witnessing. This divide in America, all the fighting, and all the ugliness on social media, and all the things they're seeing. It's programming their brains. We are the role models for them. They didn't ask for this world. We created it and gave it to them, and now we're mad at them for using it. And so what's the solution? The prison work went great, but then I met a club called Letix Sports. And it's this amazing soccer club with the most amazing coach I've ever worked with, and I've worked with a lot, Ulysses Romero. He's taking kids off the streets. The boys are getting snatched up and becoming sicarios for the cartels. The little girls are being kidnapped and sold into sex slavery. It's one of the most dangerous cities on the planet, caught up in this cartel war. And these kids were being rescued and put into this family of this club where they learned to protect one another. And the young men learned to have one another's backs and to help the ones that were weak. And the boys were taught to walk the little girls home to keep them from being kidnapped. And they were just this family. And then God began to bless it. And professional soccer players started coming out of Tijuana, Mexico. And it got put on the map. I found that, and I went down there 40 times in 2016. I mean, I was going down to Tijuana so much, man. It changed my life. And on one of those trips back, I said, man, what if we did that in our schools today? And I wrote one of my books called Protect the Dream. And the concept is this. Just say no is not working with our kids. Don't drink that, don't smoke that, don't touch that, don't ride with her, pull your mask off, get off that thing, stop that, don't. If you do, this will happen. Is that working with our kids? Womp, womp, womp. Charlie Brown's teacher, for those of us who've been around for a minute. They ain't hearing it because this is what's real to them right here, right now. They're not looking at 10 years down the road. And so I started thinking about dreams. And what brings people together? Dreams pull people together. And so do sports. So looking at the schools, I was like, in a prison, if you put me in there to bring peace, I'm going to go for the gang leaders. Why am I going to try to work with the gang leaders? Because if I get them, I get all their followers, right? So I thought, well, you go to Milton High School, Coach Clack, I want your leaders. Who are the kids walking through the hallways that get all the eyeballs and all the views on Facebook and Twitter and, Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok? It's the student athlete. So we started with them. And the concept is this: if we teach a kid to build a dream bigger than themselves, then that dream begins to pull them through things that jam other kids up. The first step is, tell me something you really, really want. I mean, the best example of it is Mendoza. I could go on and on. That kid, good Lord, even if you're a Miami fan, you've got to admire that kid. But what was it? A dream so freaking big that you can't tell me no. 134 schools say no, you can't even walk on. Now he's getting ready to be the first pick. Why? Talent? Yeah, you got that. Heart? You got a lot of that. But he has a dream, man. You show me two people with a dream. One has a dream, the other one doesn't, and both are faced with the same temptation. The one that has something to protect has the best shot. So I thought what kids need are dreams. So we started helping kids design dreams. We called it the Protect the Dream program. And look it up, and there's great videos watching these kids. And we teach these young ones have a dream worth protecting, and then we start teaching them to protect that dream from what we call dream killers. And I chose 7. Bullying, that can kill a dream. Being a hater. Irresponsible social media. Wouldn't you like your kid to be a part of that class? Unhealthy relationships. Objectifying classmates. Treating the other like an object for our use. Drug and alcohol abuse. Disrespecting authorities. Academic complacency. Chose the things that can kill a young dream once you get the dream in place. And it's something that somebody really, really wants, it begins to pull you to it. Now the game changes. It's not say, Joe, don't do that and don't do that. Here's the consequence. Instead, if that's really your dream, prove it by protecting it from things that threaten it. And so we go 8 weeks, and we take high flyers, and then we create what we call a pop club. And it's a place in the school where kids can come together and learn how to dream and support one another's dreams. At the graduation ceremony, we fill the room with the community. We have wonderful law enforcement. We have Rotarians there all the time. And we come to celebrate these kids that have learned to dream a big dream, protect it. And at the end of our ceremony, we now are going to commission them as dream protectors on their campus. All right, so imagine this, and we've got a school where we've got probably 100 kids walking the halls at Osborne High School where there's a lot of threats. And now, all I need is a dream protector at a party, and that girl starts to get in trouble, and one of my dream protectors goes over and says, hey, get her out of here, tonight's going to be a bad night. And who knows, that could have caused a video that gets dropped, and that little girl is thinking about hurting herself that night. And maybe a life was saved because a dream protector was there at McEachern High School. And this was just a couple months ago. The athletic director of that place, Myra Kamish, she's incredible. She stood up at a meeting of all the athletic directors in the county and said, I want to say this about his program. Last week, there was a fight that was about to break out in the hallway. And everybody came running with their phones out. Nobody's trying to do anything about the fight. Everybody's trying to get the shot. But there were 3 McEachern football players there, and they had gone through our program, and they got involved, and they got them separated, they told everybody to chill out and go on your way, and a fight did not happen that day. And what would have happened is suspensions, maybe expulsions. Now kids are going to alternative high schools. There might have been charges filed, and kids now have cases. None of that happened because there was 3 boys that said, we got to get involved and use our influence for peace. Thank you. The athletic director, and I'll close with this, she came to those boys and she said, why did you do that? Now, what caused her to say that? It's like, because it was shocking. Why did you do that? And they said, because we're dream protectors, coach. We got to protect you, man. And she said, I haven't seen anything like it. I want to give you a vision. Imagine pop clubs popping up all over the county, Fulton, Cobb, Gwinnett, DeKalb, Cherokee, Paulding, where these little pop clubs where kids learn how to dream, protect their dreams, and then become little dream protectors running around the hallways in the classroom. I'll give you this one last little story and show you how it works with these kids. I was doing my program, and we're filled with kids, and they're signing their pledge, starting the program, and there's a young man sitting in the very back, and he's just kind of mean mugging me the whole time. Well, I know how to look at a dude. I've been looking at tough man for a lot of time. I can look at him. What's up, bro? And afterwards, the kids are all milling around, dapping us up, and we're leaving, and he's sitting in the back. He's the last one to leave, and he comes up. He says, I want to talk to you, kid. And I said, what can I do for you, young man? He said, I can't sign your little pledge. And I said, why? He said, well, I've got an issue. I said, you want to talk to me about it? He goes, no. And I'm thinking, then why did you wait around to come and talk to me if you don't want to tell me about your little issue? And he said, well, between you and me, I sell drugs. And last night, one of my guys got robbed, and I've got to do something about it. I'm the only one that's got a gun. So I'm not going to sign your little peace pledge and then go break it because I'm a man of my word. And I'm like, well, let's start there. I admire that, brother, man. And so I said, play a game with me, Justin. And he said, what kind of game? I said, it's an imagination game. And he said, what's it look like? And I said, how long you want to live, bro? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, how long do you want to live? And he picked a number as high as he could think of, and he said 60. And I'm like, snap. And he goes, I said, all right, 60. So what's your job? And he goes, right now? I said, no, when you're 60, what's your job? He said, anything. I said, anything. Imagination game. He said, I'm a music producer. And I said, cool, what city? And he goes, right now? I said, no, it's 60. Where are you at? He goes, Miami. And I said, Miami's cool. You're going to dig that, bro. And I said, okay, music produced, big or little? He goes, big. I said, you living in a high-rise condo or you living in a gated community? He said, high-rise. And I said, what are you driving? He goes, now? And I said, nah, man, then. He goes, Maybach. And I'm like, cool. And I said, you got a lady? And he goes, now? And I went, no, later, dude. And he goes, yeah. And I said, describe her. And he said, fine, Latino. And I said, all right, I see you, bro. And I said, you got kids? And he goes, I got grandkids. And I'm like, he's getting it. And I said, let me summarize. The future you is living in Miami in a high-rise condo. You got your own music production business. You've got a fine wife. You got kids. You got grandkids. You're driving a Maybach. Life is good. I said, you see that? He goes, yeah. I said, take a picture of it. He goes, I got it. I said, all right, now time travel all the way back to me right now, Justin. And let's ask the future version of yourself what you ought to do about this little thing you got going on. And he goes, I guess that's kind of like chump change, isn't it? I said, you tell me, bro. That day he was wearing a long, big old white t-shirt, sag pants, a cap turned to the side. He's wearing these nice kicks. He comes in the next week, and this kid comes bouncing up to me. I don't even recognize him. I'm like, who are you? He said, I'm Justin, Mr. Kit. And he's wearing slacks tucked in, button-up shirt, no hat, nice shoes, tip-top. And I said, what happened, bro? And he said, I'm working on my business plan. All he needed was a dream, and then we protect it. You guys are dream protectors. God bless you. I love you. Thank you.